What's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazy Frankie, and I welcome you all to my Week 2 4 key game picks. Before we get into that, thoughts on Week 1. And I must say that Week 1 was pretty something. Just going back to that whole weekend, I have to say, it was you could say that that weekend had a bunch of comeback games. Well, and what I mean by that is, if you look at games like the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game, Jacksonville, Philadelphia, Arizona, San Diego, Indianapolis, and Denver. These games, I have to admit, they really lived up to expect. Some people said they didn't expect these to be comeback games. Well, the only comeback from those four games that I mentioned, was really the Arizona Cardinals beating my San Diego Chargers. I don't even want to get into that. I already received enough flack from a lot of my friends who know me personally about that game. So thank you. I don't need any more flack, please. I know what happened in that game. I saw that game. But I will say though, going back, those were games. Those games that had almost comebacks here. Especially the one that surprised me was Jacksonville being ahead of Philadelphia earlier in that game. I don't know what took Philadelphia so long to really mount a comeback, but hey, I give them a ton of credit. They made that comeback and they did it. What else could I say here? But going to the other games, Cleveland was kind of surprising for me as well. They mounted a comeback even though they lost by a field goal to the Steelers. This Cleveland team, I don't know if you want to take them a little bit too lightly now because the way they played, I got to give them props though. Somehow their defense somehow kept them in the game. I don't know how, but they did, and the offense somehow responded. Poyer really did a great job with the offense, mounting a great comeback here, but Pittsburgh somehow survived the scare, winning at the end. And how about games going into overtime? Buffalo, Chicago, and New Orleans and Atlanta. Now, the Bills, what a big upset they had over the Bears. The Bears, I thought they looked like they had control in the first half, but then all of a sudden the Bills just completely took over the second half. The offense of Chicago, like I told many people, I don't know if I want to trust Jay Cutler at quarterback for this offense that the Bears have. Obviously, he's just not been that consistent, and it's so far it looks to me it's the same. I haven't seen much out of Jay Cutler, but if you're a Bears fan, you got to be concerned about that. But give props to Buffalo. E.J. Manuel did a great job in that Bills offense. Got to give them a ton of credit. They really hung in there, and they won in overtime in that game. New Orleans and Atlanta, no question. I knew that game was going to be tight all the way, and mad props to Atlanta for winning at the end. Obviously, the Colston turnover in overtime really cost the Saints in that game. And give the Falcons a ton of credit. They capitalized on the turnover, and they won by a field goal. Other surprises, I really would not call it a surprise though, because New England losing to Miami. I knew that game was going to be a bit of a surprise, and give mad props to Miami. They ended up winning that game. Giants getting blown out by Detroit. That didn't surprise me one bit. Minnesota coming up with a huge win over the St. Louis Rams. It's really, if you look at the rest of week number 1, it really was an interesting week. I must say, but obviously right now that week is over. Now let's get into week number 2, shall we? For week number 2, here are my 4 key game picks for this. Now let's go to key game pick number 1. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, for this video, I don't want to get into any details. I know there's off-the-field issues going on with the Baltimore Ravens. I don't want to get into that. I know this is becoming a big distraction. Everybody knows what's going on. You could pretty much read through the news or anything what's going on with off-the-field issues. I don't want to get into that. I just only want to get into the game here. I only care about the football game right now. Now, Pittsburgh, as I said earlier in this video, they were lucky to survive a scare from the Cleveland Browns. That game was really, really tight all the way. But for this game against Baltimore, I mean these two teams, the hatred what they have for one another for both of these teams is extremely high. This rivalry is still pretty intense. It's going to be a tight game all the way. Baltimore is actually favored in this game, as I'm reading from all the point spreads online. Baltimore is favored by 2.5 points here. Um, but I just think the way they played against Cincinnati and the way both offense and defense, I mean, both of them struggled. I mean, I thought that the Ravens defense would mount something here. I mean, they at least make some key stops, but boy, was I wrong. I was wrong on the Ravens a little bit on that part. I mean, they lost to Cincinnati in that game. But for this game against Pittsburgh and all, it's tough. I mean, this game's really a toss-up here. But I just think with too much distractions that the Ravens have right now, I got to go with Pittsburgh here. You got to go with the Steelers in this game. I mean, this game is going to be tight all the way. There's no question about it. For this game here, the way that the offense really came about, I mean, they really should have blown out Cleveland in their game, but I just think for this game, no question is going to be a very, very close game, but I just think the Steelers would win by a squeaker. No question. I'm going to pick Pittsburgh in this one. This game's going to be close. You got to go with the Steelers. I'm going to go with the Steelers here, barely edging out a victory over Baltimore. Key game number 2, it is the Detroit Lions at the Carolina Panthers. Now, Panthers barely squeaking by a victory over Tampa Bay, and Detroit and of course the Lions basically they destroy the New York Giants in their opening game. This game is kind of also a toss-up here. Carolina is favored in this game by 2.5 points, and even though you kind of have to look at what the Lions did with the Giants. I mean, defensive wise, they did improve a little bit, but the penalties are still a concern for Detroit here. And the way I saw them play against the Giants, even though they won big, I mean, the penalties are still an issue for this Lions defense. I mean, the penalties are just a killer right now for Detroit. And if I'm going to say who's going to win this game, Carolina. They will have Cam Newton back. Cam Newton is expected to start in this game. It's really a tough one to pick here. This game is also a toss-up here, but in terms of both of these teams, the way they played their openers here, the way they're opening games, I'm gonna say Carolina wins this game here. I just think with the issues with the penalties, if the Detroit defense is still not disciplined, they're gonna have problems with Carolina in this game. But no question, it might be close, but I'm gonna go with the Panthers here. I like the way Carolina hung in there, as Carolina was playing with a backup quarterback in their first game. But Cam Newton will be back in this game. No question that this game is a toss-up, but I'm gonna go with Carolina. You got to go with the Panthers over the Lions. Key game number 3. It's the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. Now, it's not often I see the Dolphins and the Bills as, especially Buffalo here. I mean, they come off a huge victory over the Chicago Bears, and both the Dolphins and Bills coming off big wins in their games. Ryan Tannehill and the offense did a very good job, really doing a good job of exposing a bit of the Patriots' defense. And it's tough to say in this game here how well they're going to do against Buffalo here, because the way both teams play, I mean, it's hard to say because, I still think both of these teams are mediocre. They're not ready to, I don't know if they're ready to take that next level yet, because like I said before the start of the season, the Patriots are still a heavy favorite in that AFC East division. But going into this game here, Geno Smith did EJ Manuel. I don't want to get I get quarterbacks confused both between the Bills and the Jets. EJ Manuel did a great job offensively in Buffalo's win over the Bears last week, and I kind of like the way they hung. They basically stuck around, and they did a very good job of holding onto the ball both on offense and defense. And the way the Dolphins played last week, I mean, putting up 33. I think it was over 30 points over the Patriots. This game is another toss-up. To say who do I have winning this game here? Well, this game is in Buffalo. This is the Bills' home opener here. But the way the Dolphins played, I'm gonna say Miami edges out a victory over the Bills here. Miami's offense is a bit more, just a slightly bit more disciplined than Buffalo's offense is, but it all comes down. It all comes down to see who can hold on to the ball. It's all going to come down to turnovers here. It's all going to come down to basically those factors here. But I like Miami in this game. Miami did a. I'm gonna I'm gonna pick Miami here. And Miami, will squeak out a victory over Buffalo. Dolphins over the Bills. And key game number 4. It is the Eagles at the Colts. Now, give ton of credit to Indianapolis. I mean, they almost came back and tied their game against Denver, but Denver won by a touchdown. And I kind of did not like the way Philadelphia started out against Jacksonville. That was really just horrific, the way I saw the first half of that game. But they mounted that comeback and they beat Jacksonville. Well, Jacksonville wasn't really much of a good team anyway. I mean, I don't know how they weren't able to score more points if they were able to expose a bit of the turnover. I mean, they had turnovers. The turnovers almost cost Philadelphia the game. But I would say, the way Indianapolis played in that comeback, I expect Indianapolis to bounce back in this game. And the way Philadelphia started out, that's a bit of a concern if you're an Eagles fan. So who do I have in this game? I'm going to say the Colts will beat the Eagles here in this game, even though I am a bit of an Eagles fan myself. But the way I saw the Eagles play in that game against Jacksonville, I did not like what I saw in that first half, even though, I mean, I don't know if I want to say that the Eagles are a second half team, but I don't know if they're going to keep doing that all season long. I mean, I kind of didn't not like the way they played. It was kind of embarrassing. But in this game here, I mean, they should be able to keep this game close with Indianapolis. But I see Indianapolis winning this game. Indianapolis is favored by 3. It's hard to go. It's hard to go against them in this. It's hard to go against the Colts. I think the Colts bounce back in this. I'm gonna pick the Colts over the Eagles. Well, that's it, everybody. That's it for my key game picks for week number 2. I have a short little announcement to make now. I have now made some changes to my blog now. So my blog link now has changed. So I'm going to post it up on a caption here for this video here. My blog now is thesportblog@blogspot.com. I decided to change my blog now to kind of a sports blog, because if there's one thing I love to talk about is sports. I mean, who doesn't like sports if you're a big sports fan like myself? I mean, why do I do these videos here? Because I love the NFL. The NFL and, of course, the other leagues too. So that is now my new blog now at thesportblog@blogspot.com. I'll post up the link here towards the end of this video. But anyways, other than that, everybody, enjoy your football weekend, and I will see you all next week for week number 3, and it's 4 key game picks. Until then, take care.